Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into a company that's really shaking things up in the world of data centers, EnergiAcres.
Yeah, they're definitely making waves.
They're all about sustainability, which is more important than ever with AI just exploding and putting a huge strain on power grids everywhere, but especially in tech hubs.
Yeah, it's the perfect storm, right? AI needs a ton of power, and the current infrastructure, it's just not built to handle that sustainably. And that's exactly where Energy Acres comes in.
And the founder's story is pretty fascinating too. I mean, we're talking about Shawn Cutter, a sixth-generation farmer
Hmm.
who ends up becoming a tech entrepreneur.
It's not your typical Silicon Valley background, that's for sure.
Not at all. But he's using his farming roots to address this very 21st century problem. His goal is to bridge this gap that's forming between the ever-increasing demand for data and finding clean, reliable energy to power it all.
Yeah, he understands firsthand how critical reliable energy is coming from the world of agriculture, and he's brought that same dedication to the tech world.
And what's really interesting is he's chosen to focus a lot of his efforts in Ohio.
Makes sense, though, right? I mean, for one, it's his home state, so there's that personal connection.
Right, wanting to make a difference close to home.
Exactly. But it's also strategic. Ohio's seeing explosive growth in data centers way faster than their energy infrastructure can handle right now.
I read somewhere that their data centers will need, get this, over 1,200 megawatts of power by 2026.
Yeah, 1,239 megawatts to be exact. And that's just a few years off.
I mean, that's enough to power a major city.
It really highlights the urgency of what EnergiAcres is trying to do. They're not just trying to keep the servers running, they're trying to do it without wrecking the planet in the process.
Absolutely. And to do that, they're using a really unique approach. They call it a collaborative ecosystem. Basically, it's a combination of different technologies all working together.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating approach. They're using these things called modular power plants, along with some clever energy recycling techniques, and even looking at how to use waste heat to grow food.
It sounds almost too good to be true. Modular, cogeneration, these are all buzzwords we hear a lot these days. But what do they actually mean in practice?
Well, think of it this way. Imagine a power plant, but instead of this massive centralized facility, it's broken down into smaller, more manageable modules. That's essentially what a modular power plant is.
So smaller, more adaptable power plants that can be placed exactly where the energy is needed.
Exactly. It allows for much more flexibility and resilience compared to traditional power grids.
Especially with things like extreme weather events becoming more common. Being able to quickly adapt and reroute power could be a game changer.
Exactly. And that's just the modular part. Then there's cogeneration, which is all about efficiency.
So instead of just letting all that excess heat from generating electricity go to waste,
Exactly. They capture it and put it to work, like heating greenhouses, for instance, or powering other parts of their operation.
wow, it's like they're squeezing every last drop of usefulness out of their energy. And speaking of using things in new ways, this whole thing about growing food with captured CO2, that really blew my mind.
Yeah, it's a great example of how they're connecting the dots between different systems to create a more sustainable model.
It's just like they're creating a closed loop.
Exactly. Instead of releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, they're capturing those emissions and using them to actually help grow food in these controlled environments, like greenhouses, vertical farms, that sort of thing.
So less transportation, fresher produce,
Yeah,
potentially even tackling food deserts. It's brilliant.
absolutely. And a perfect example of this in action is their flagship initiative, Project Everberry.
Right, Project Everberry. They're piloting this in Appalachia, which makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah, they've zeroed in on three main locations: Wheeling, West Virginia, there's St. Clairsville, Ohio, and Washington, Pennsylvania.
And what was the reasoning behind choosing these specific places?
Well, they offer this interesting mix of existing infrastructure. They have some of the bones already there. And then there's also the potential for really significant job creation and economic revitalization in a region that's seen its share of hardship.
And they've partnered with some big names for this, haven't they?
Oh, absolutely. You've got Grow Ohio Valley. They're a nonprofit focused on local food systems. Then there's CNX Resources, a major player in natural gas. And they even got Ogle Bay on board, that historic resort in Wheeling.
Wow. Talk about a diverse group of partners. It seems like they're really tapping into that collaborative ecosystem concept they're all about.
For sure. And the great thing is, this whole project aligns perfectly with what the Appalachian Regional Commission, the ARC, has been trying to do for years.
Which is?
Revitalizing Appalachia, creating sustainable development, jobs, community engagement. EnergiAcres' vision fits right in.
That's a win-win then.
Exactly. A positive feedback loop where everyone benefits.
It's amazing how they're bringing all these pieces together. The economic side, the community aspect, the environmental sustainability. It's not just about data, it's about building a better future for these communities.
It really is. And think about the ripple effect. You're talking about new jobs, and not just in tech. You've got construction to build these things. You need people to work on the agricultural side. Even manufacturing comes into play.
It's a whole ecosystem of opportunity popping up around these data centers.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the impact on food. Local, fresh produce, potentially reaching areas that haven't had access to that kind of food security in a long time.
Yeah, it's a really holistic approach to a whole bunch of problems all at once.
Yeah.
But we got to be real, right? There's got to be some serious challenges to pulling something this ambitious off.
Of course. I mean, first off, the upfront investment for something like this is huge. And then there's always the challenge of bringing new technologies online, working with existing energy systems, not to mention the energy market itself, which can be pretty unpredictable.
And how people react to something this different, right? People are used to getting their energy and their food in certain ways. To change that, it takes time.
For sure. But like any big change, the potential payoff here is huge if they can get it right. If EnergiAcres proves this model works, it could change everything, not just in Appalachia, but everywhere.
It's a bold move, that's for sure. So as we wrap up here, what's the one big takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with today?
I think the big lesson here is that the solutions to these big, hairy problems we're facing, like climate change, they can come from unexpected places. EnergiAcres is proof that you need to think differently to connect things that seem totally separate at first glance. You got to be willing to challenge the status quo.
Be willing to turn a challenge into an opportunity. Kind of like Shawn Cutter himself, right? From farmer to tech innovator. And for everyone listening, keep an eye on EnergiAcres. This is just the beginning for them. And if you want to learn more, we've got a whole list of links and resources on our website. Check it out. And until next time, stay curious, keep asking those tough questions, and let's all do our part to build a brighter future.